Fellas, what's going on, boys? Let me get myself situated here. Welcome back to our weekly stream, or every day during the week, I should say. Make sure this is working properly. Yep, that looks good. Let's set this old goal. Bang. And one more second, fellas. One more second. There we go. Alrighty. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to our stream here. We stream every day during the week, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and on weekends we stream on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. But welcome back. So since the last time we talked, there was some clarification on something we were talking about in the last stream, and we were kind of talking about who's going to be the main event for this upcoming weekend's card. Obviously, the card's not great. It's an Apex card, and even outside of that, the card's not great. But we got some clarification on that today. We originally thought it was going to be a heavyweight fight, but now it seems like Tatsuro Taira is actually going to be going to still be on that card. So it's going to be Tatsuro Taira versus Hungsung Park. So, did it not come up? Sorry, boys. Sorry. There we go. So here it is. Oh, sorry. Where is it? Here it is. So the main event this weekend is going to be Tatsuro Taira versus Hungsung Park. This was originally supposed to be Steve Urseg's opponent, Hungsung Park. So it's kind of a weird situation for Steve, as he was supposed to fight Alex Perez initially. Then he had to pull out, and it was supposed to be Hungsung Park. And now Hungsung Park had to pull out because he's getting a main event slot, a huge opportunity for him against Tatsuro Taira. So that's the main event for this upcoming week. And for Steve Urseg, he's going to be fighting Ode Osborne. So this is a fun fight, honestly. We'll see how it plays out. I definitely still lean with Steve, but it's an interesting one because, as I said, Steve has had a couple different opponents already. This is the third guy, and we'll see how he's able to adjust. Of course, he doesn't have that much time before his fight. It's not this weekend; it's the weekend after that. So we'll see how he's able to adjust and see what he's able to do out there. But in my opinion, I think he's going to do just fine. And I think Steve should be the favorite. He probably will be, and I think he'll win the fight. But outside of that, we also had some other news. So Jiri Prochazka is going to be the backup fighter for UFC 320. It's between Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. So if either one of those guys miss weight, we may see Jiri Prochazka in there. Specifically, if Alex Pereira misses weight, they'll slide in Jiri into there, and maybe he'll get a title shot at that point. Most likely, I feel like the fight's probably going to go on as planned, but this is a little bit of a security blanket for the UFC, and for Jiri, it's an opportunity for him to maybe get a title shot. I know he's scheduled to fight on UFC 321, I believe it is, or no, he's supposed to fight actually on UFC 320 against Khalil Roundtree, but at the same time, he'll be the backup fighter. So it kind of makes sense because Yuri's going to be cutting weight anyway. So if one of the guys in the main event miss weight, he can just slide into the main event and fight for a title. So that's the other news we got. And then the last one is Caio Borralho is going to be the backup fighter for UFC 319 between Dricus and Hamzat. Now, this one is a little bit of a different scenario. I think it makes a lot of sense that he's going to be the backup fighter for this fight, just because Hamzat obviously has missed weight before, and he's pulled out of a couple fights, so it does make sense to have a backup fighter for a fight like this. But this one's a little different because for Caio Borralho, he's supposed to fight on the Paris card, which is a few weeks after UFC 319. So essentially, he has to cut weight for UFC 319, and assuming no pullouts or no missed weight or anything like that, he's kind of cutting weight for no reason, and then he has to cut weight again not too long after that. Now, he does have some time, obviously, in between, but a lot of times fighters talk about when they have to cut weight twice in a short amount of time, it does affect them. So we'll see what happens for Caio Borralho, but he'll probably be fine. MB, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Let's go for that. But yeah, so it seems like the UFC is finally, maybe they're just announcing it, maybe prior they didn't do it, But I know a lot of people were talking about the UFC not having a backup plan, and a lot of times when we saw these main events fall through, whether it was a fight night main event or whether it was a pay per view main event, the UFC didn't really have anything to fall back on. But at this point, it seems like they're doing a better job at securing backup fighters or locking in backup fighters for some of these big main events. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. But of course, hopefully everything goes as planned. Hopefully we have Alex versus Ankalaev, and hopefully we get DDP versus Hamzat. The DDP versus Hamzat fight that's the fight. Really, really excited about that one. That's the fight of the year, in my opinion. I guess we'll see what they decide to book after that card for the fall. But in my opinion, that's probably going to be the best card of the year, or best fight of the year. So I'm really hoping that fight does stay intact. But as I said before, Hamzat has he's missed weight before, so we'll see how it pans out. But I'm personally hoping for good things. But yeah. But yeah, so outside of that, it's obviously fight week for this Apex card versus Tatsuro, Taira, and Hungsung Park. The card itself is not really that good. Also, this is going to be the first time we go back to the Apex since late May. So it has been nice that we haven't been going to the Apex for a while, but for the next 2 weeks, we'll be in the Apex, unfortunately. But the card itself, as I said, is not really that good, but there's a couple fights that I guess could be interesting, like Rebetsky versus Chris Duncan. That's probably going to be a fun fight, high-paced fight, high-action fight. Elvis Brenner versus Ribovich. That's almost definitely going to be really fun. Most likely a finish for Ribovich. So I think that'll be good. And Vahelos versus Danny Silva is going to be fun as well. What else? That's probably it, honestly, on this card of fun fights. But we'll see how the card plays out. Look, he said it for the Apex. It's been long. Yeah, it has been a long time. We'll see how the card plays out. I mean, honestly, a lot of times when you have really low expectations for a card, even if it's an Apex card, a lot of times they usually do tend to over deliver. And as I said, there are a couple fights on this card that I think are good and are going to be fun, and I'm personally excited for. So we'll see how everything pans out, and we'll see how the card looks. And in terms of the Apex, yeah, they haven't been there in a while, which I personally think is a good thing. I prefer watching fights in arenas with the crowd. Just makes things a little bit more exciting. But of course, at times, I guess the Apex could could add a new layer. I guess hearing the corner, hearing the how powerful some of the shots are. So we'll see how the Apex looks this weekend. Taira finish guaranteed. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I feel like he's probably just going to find a takedown and then submit Hungsung Park. Pretty big opportunity for Park. We'll see how he does in this. I personally think he's a good fighter. He's an undefeated fighter. I believe he's 10-0, and in the UFC he's fought once, maybe twice. Solid fighter. But I agree. I think this is probably too big of a step up in competition for him. I think that sort of Taira has been a guy who, although he did lose to Brendan Royval and not so great of a performance, he has shown some pretty good things in a lot of his fights, and obviously his jiu-jitsu is elite. His boxing could definitely use some work, but he's had some time off since the Brendan Royval fight, and Royval is one of the better fighters in that division as well. So we'll see how his boxing looks at this point, talking about Taira. But I'm assuming he's just going to go for a takedown and find a takedown and find a finish within the first 2 rounds. That's kind of how I see that fight going. But definitely a big opportunity for Park, though. We'll see how he does. For the Chris Duncan and Rebetsky fight, I kind of lean towards Rebetsky in this one. I think he's actually pretty good. He hits pretty hard. His cardio seems to be bad sometimes, but in other fights it's fine. So it's definitely an interesting one with Rebetsky, which version of him you're going to get. But for the most part, I think he's a good fighter, does good things on the feet, and on the ground, he has decent wrestling. Ribovich and Elvis Brenner, I think that's actually a pretty easy one to predict. We'll see what the odds are for that fight, but I'm assuming Ribovich is a very heavy favorite. Elvis Brenner's a good fighter. He does a lot of good things on the feet. He definitely could strike a little bit. He does some good things, good kicks, decent Muay Thai. And on the ground, he has pretty good jiu-jitsu for sure. The only problem at this point with Elvis Brenner is he's just a little bit too fragile, in my opinion. And I feel like he's I don't want to say washed, but like kind of close to being washed, just because he's taken a lot of damage throughout the years, and I think we've really seen that as of late start to pile up, and he's been getting hurt a lot in some of his more recent fights. So I personally think Ribovic is going to get in the inside, land a big shot, maybe land a couple of big shots, and finish Elvis. Um, but we'll see how that fight goes. Brenner's chinny, yeah, I agree. I agree. He's got dropped so many times in some of his more recent fights. Um, and yeah, I mean, because when you look at 2024, he got TKO'd by Joel Alvarez and he got decisioned by Orabai. But if you watch that Orabai fight back, Orabai was able to hurt him and I believe dropped him, or at the very least hurt him multiple times in that fight. So Elvis Brenner's chin is definitely not amazing, and I think a guy who hits as hard as Ribovic does will be able to find the chin and you know find a finish. In my opinion, Brenner needs to move up. Yeah, maybe. Man, that was a word salad. You mean you think he's chinny because he's cutting too much weight? You might be right. You might be right. Um, but but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how he does. I personally think, like as I said, I don't want to say he's washed, but he's definitely been taking a lot of damage, and he's more chinny than he used to be. I'll say that, but we'll see. Joshua, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Just finished a new video. Nice work, Juice. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I believe it was somebody told me on stream to make a video about it. I don't remember exactly who it was. It was a while ago at this point, but yeah, it was a fun video to put together, and yeah. But thanks. I appreciate you watching. But yeah. But yeah, outside of some of those fights that I already mentioned, we have Neil Magny and Ezekiel Dos Santos, which is kind of a weird fight to me. Neil Magny's not really an exciting fighter. Dos Santos could be, so we'll see how that one pans out. And yeah, really outside of that, I don't see any fights that excite me all that much on the card. There's a couple fight cancellations of fights that I thought would have been fun, like Azamat versus Terence Finney. That would have been fun. Fun is a strong word, but with Finney fights are usually not that fun. But with Azamat fights, they usually are. So that could have been interesting. Andre Lima, I was really excited to see him on this card, but that fight was canceled. And then obviously the main event, the original main event, was canceled as well, and Taira versus Amir Albazi. Not to say that I was super excited about that main event between Taira and Amir Albazi, but at the very least, it was two guys that were legitimate contenders, and I thought it meant something for the flyweight division. But at this point, if Taira just goes out there and finds a finish over Park, which I think he will do, I don't know how far that would push him in the rankings. At this point. So I prefer the previous main event, but we'll see. Maybe this main event will turn out to be a more fun fight. So we'll see how that pans out. And then obviously for next week, it's arguably even in a worse card than it is this week. I think the main event is fun. It's a good fight in Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. But outside of that, not much. The co-main event is going to be Steve Erceg and Ode Osborne, as I touched upon before, that's a fun fight. But outside of those two fights, you have Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez, which could be fine. Chris Leroy Duncan versus Eric Anders. That's whatever kind of fight. Julius Walker fighting on the card versus Raphael, who I don't believe is really all that good. So that's fine. Elijah Smith is on the card. Yeah, that's really it. Unless they're missing some fights on this card. But yeah, that's really it. So there's not much, honestly, for these next 2 weeks. There's a couple of fun fights, but for the most part, there's not much these next 2 weeks. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited to watch the GOAT Terence Finney. Yeah, me too. Me too. Terence is such a weird guy. I feel like he should be really, really physical, to be honest. But he's he's very strong in the wrestling, but he doesn't hit that hard, and also he just doesn't really do that much. So I guess that's part of it. But he is winning, so good for him. I was wondering why they didn't ask her to main event since he was ranked. That you would think that would make more sense. Actually, that's a good point. You would definitely think that would make more sense, but honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to fight this soon. Maybe they asked him and he didn't want to fight this soon. Just a week difference, but maybe he didn't want to. I don't know. That's kind of a weird one. I agree with you. But yeah, he's gonna fight Ode, who's not even ranked. Similar to this week's main event for the co-main event next week for Steve Erceg, I don't really know how much it does for him either. Maybe at this point for Steve though, he is coming off a few losses in a row, and maybe he just wants to get back into the win column and start to build his resume from there. Which maybe that's what he wanted, and he didn't want to fight a guy like Tatsuro Taira, who he thought would be a dangerous opponent for him, and on very short notice. Maybe that's the reason. But a guy like Ode Osborne, who's not ranked at this point and obviously not as good of a fighter as Tatsuro Taira is, maybe was a more appealing matchup for Steve. So maybe that was the reason. But I kind of agree with you, Joshua. I don't really get why they didn't just ask Steve, or maybe they did and he declined it. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I heard originally the rumor was it was supposed to be who was it supposed to be? For the main event for this weekend, it was supposed to be Waldo Acosta versus Taliesin Teixeira, and that's funny because I actually mentioned that the other day on one of the live streams that I thought that should be a fight that they make, or maybe even Waldo versus Derek Lewis. I thought it could be the main event of the Apex card, but it didn't end up happening. Taliesin Teixeira wasn't able to make the quick turnaround, so um, whatever. Erceg needs a win, so I could see him not want to take the risk. Yeah, I agree. I personally think Erceg still has a pretty bright future, but I agree with you. He really needs a win at this point. He's taken a couple losses in a row. He's lost to like really good fighters. When you talk about Pantoja and Moreno, those two guys are great fighters, and even KKF. I consider KKF a solid fighter, not a great fighter or anything, but it's kind of like Erceg just got caught. It wasn't like he was getting dominated for 5 rounds against him. He just got caught in that fight. So, after taking those 3 losses in a row, at this point, he wants to maybe fight an easier opponent and get a win and get back on track. Because as I said, I do still have hope for Erceg. I do still think he can fight for a title, as weird as it may sound at this point, because he is on a 3-fight losing streak. But I'm still pretty high in the guy. His striking is great. His wrestling is solid. I think we saw that actually in the Pantoja fight. And he's just pretty well-rounded, in my opinion. What do you rate the poster the UFC made for Tyrone Park? Let's see. I didn't even see the poster. Let's see. Is it the same as the Albazi one, just with Park in there? Can't find it for some reason. Oh, is this really it? There's no way this is it. Let me see. Chad, is this the actual poster? There's no way, right? Let me click on this. This is real. Oh, okay, it's this one. Okay, I was going to say there's no way. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I've seen better. I've seen worse. It's a fine poster. Ode's a way easier fight than Taira, yeah, to say the least. Ode is dangerous, though. He does good things. He's really fast. It's relatively hard for 125, so there's things to worry about. But if Erceg can just take the fight down to the ground, which he does have an advantage over Ode in the wrestling, he can probably find a finish or at least ride his way out. But even if he wants to strike, I think he'll have an advantage there as well. So not bad. Erceg's going to KO Ode fast. I agree. This is, by the way, welcome to the stream. But this is probably a pretty good matchup for him to get back on track, get a victory, and hopefully for him get a pretty quick victory. Kind of sucks. I actually already made a breakdown for Erceg when he was supposed to fight Hungsung Park. So now I got to scrap that video and I'll make a new one for him versus Ode. But I agree. I do believe he's going to finish Ode most likely. He's almost definitely going to win, but even a finish I think will probably happen as well. So good for Erceg. Hopefully he can get back on track here. It is obviously a quick turnaround, but I think Erceg has a lot of advantages in this fight. So yeah, I think he'll take advantage of it. So yeah, that's kind of what we have for the next 2 weeks. Then obviously we have 319, which is going to be really, really fun. Very, very excited about that card actually. With Trikas Hamzat and Kaya Sakura is on the card. Kaya Sakura is a guy that I personally think is pretty fun. I know a lot of guys are pretty low on Kai after he lost to Pantoja, just getting taken down and submitted. But in my opinion, I always thought that was so weird, just because everybody's getting taken down and submitted by Pantoja. Pantoja's just that good. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I watched your Bilal vs. Usman video and was sad that you think Usman was going to win. Yeah, we'll see if they we'll see if they even put this fight together. I personally think it makes sense just because they're both former champions. Usman's coming off a win, Bilal's coming off a loss. They have the beef, and I don't know. I just feel like it makes sense to put the fight together. So we'll see if they do. But I also heard some other rumors of Bilal potentially fighting Shavkat. But then I heard some rumors of Shavkat saying that he doesn't want to fight anybody else outside of a title fight. So I don't exactly know what's going to happen next for either Usman or Bilal. But it's an interesting fight. Bully B is going to win if they fight. Yeah, I mean, you may be right. We'll see what happens. One thing that I will say about Bilal, is he did impress me when he went up against JDM. Yes, I thought his game plan wasn't great personally, but on the feet he did land a bunch of shots on JDM. And yes, I mean, Bilal doesn't really hit all that hard, for being honest, well, to say the least. So he wasn't really able to hurt JDM, but his boxing definitely looked to be much improved, and he was losing the exchanges, but he was kind of making them relatively competitive. He was landing some shots on JDM for sure. So maybe if he goes into a fight versus Usman, maybe he can have success. But we'll see. I just feel personally the reason why I was leaning towards Usman is the power difference is obviously like ridiculous. But also in terms of the wrestling, I just don't personally think Bilal is going to be able to take Usman down. He's shown ridiculously good takedown defense. Really, the only guy that was able to do it was Hamzat up a weight class. But, at his normal weight class, I do believe Usman will be able to stop takedowns. And if it's forced to be a stand-up fight, which most likely it will be, I think the jab right straight could be big for Kamaru. But we'll see. You might be right that Bilal is going to win it. Or Bilal Usman versus Shavkat would be awesome. Yeah, I agree. That'd be cool. Yeah, as I said, I just don't know if Shavkat is willing to fight any other fight besides the title, but at the same time, it's the UFC's choice. If they're not willing to give him a title, they're not willing to give him a title. Obviously, he already earned a title shot, but he was injured and he had to pull out. That's kind of why JDM is the champion at this point. It is kind of weird how everything plays out because Shavkat, had to pull out. Now all of a sudden JDM's the champion when he was originally never supposed to get a title shot, which is it's always kind of weird to me how like one small change can change a lot of things. And now we have JDM fighting Islam, not announced yet, but it seems like that's going to happen next. You're almost guaranteed that's what's going to happen next. So it's kind of crazy how these things play out and pan out. I just don't know how good Usman is. This is actually one thing I agree with. Yeah, in the Buckley fight, he did look to grapple in essentially every round in the feet. Yeah. In the Buckley fight, he looked to wrestle in every round. But the thing about it is, every round that he shot in for a takedown, he was able to get it like very easily. Even in the third round, I believe, or the fourth round, he shot in from so far away and he got it so easily. So I think his mindset was just, takedowns are so easy at this point. Let me just shoot in for a bunch. In the fifth round, you are right though. Usman shot him for a couple takedowns. It was kind of weird how it panned out, but in the fifth round, after getting taken down so easily, Buckley all of a sudden realized how to stop takedowns. But when Usman was forced to stay on the feet, he didn't look all that great. But the difference is Buckley is a lot more of a dangerous striker than a guy like Bilal is. Bilal is going to be faster than Kamaru for sure, but really everybody's faster than Kamaru. Even when Kamaru was in his prime on the feet, everybody's faster than this guy. So I personally think he was a little bit uncomfortable. He also didn't fight in a long time before the Buckley fight, and also Buckley, as I said, is dangerous. So I think in Usman's mind, he was looking more to stay a little bit safer. I could be absolutely wrong in this. We'll see how he looks in his next fight on the feet, but I personally think he's going to look better in his next fight on the feet, especially if it's against a guy who's not all that dangerous. But we'll see. You might be right though. Bilal may just win the fight with the speed and boxing, but we will see. Cyril Gane will get KO'd. Yeah, I agree. Serial Khan. Um, I personally think he could get KO'd on the feet against Tom, but yeah, most likely, as you said, I think he's just going to take him down and submit him. I think Gon versus Tom is most likely going to look pretty similar to John versus Gon, where I think early on Gon will get taken down and submitted. That's personally what I think, but yeah, I don't think Gon is like a horrible fighter or anything like that. I think he is one of the better fighters of the heavyweight division, which honestly I guess is not saying that much. But he does do pretty good things on the feet. He's really fast. He's very very athletic. His kicks are good. His boxing is solid. His defense is also relatively good on the feet. Just he has such a glaring hole in his game, and that's his takedown defense. And on the ground also, he doesn't have great grappling. And yes, it's been a while since that John Jones fight happened, and I know a lot of people like to say, oh well, he can make improvements to that takedown defense and make improvements on the ground, which is true. But when you talk about how far ahead Tom Aspinall is on the ground than Cyril Gahn, you know, however long it's been since the John Jones fight, that's not enough time to make significant improvements to the point where Gahn will be able to stop takedowns versus Tom, or if he gets taken down, he'll be able to avoid submissions and avoid ground and pound strikes and get back to his feet. I personally think it's still a very glaring hole for Cyril Gahn, and I think Tom's just going to take him down and submit him personally. Um, but yeah, to be fair, Gunn did beat Volkov the first time very clear. The first time was very clear. I thought the second fight he lost, even though he got the victory. The first fight was very clear though. And I think part of the reason why Gunn was such a heavy favorite over Volkov is because how easily he won their first fight. So as I said, I personally think Gunn's a good fighter. There's a lot of guys that he can beat at the heavyweight division. I mean, there's not a lot of great competition, but still, there's a lot of guys that I think he can beat at heavyweight. I just personally think Tom Aspinall is head and shoulders over everybody. It's not just Gunn. He's head and shoulders over Volkov, who we already beat before, Pavlovich, who we already beat before, Blades, who we already beat before, Jaltin. I mean, I think Jaltin is actually has a good chance of beating Volkov, so we'll see how that goes. But even if Jaltin does beat Volkov, I think Tom has such a big advantage over him on the feet. Against Waldo Acosta, I don't think it's even close. Tybura, Spivak, Tai Tuivasa, Gaziev, Mick Parkin, Budai, Kuniev, all those guys, I think the same. It's not even remotely close. The only guys that I think could maybe give him some trouble is a guy like Derek Lewis, ironically enough, but not because Derek Lewis is super skilled or anything like that. I just think he can be losing the fight until he's not. Sort of thing where, let's say it's a 5-round fight. Well, I guess it would be for a title fight. You can be losing like 3.5 rounds, 4.5 rounds. All of a sudden he lands one big right hand or a big left hook and he can knock out Tom, because as good as Tom has been, he does have an issue with leaving his chin up there, up in the air a little bit. And obviously at this point, it hasn't affected him or hurt him at all. Against a guy like Derek Lewis, it could potentially happen. But at the same time, most likely Tom is just going to take Derek Lewis down and submit him, or land ground and pound shots and find a finish, or even knock him out on the feet, possibly. Tom is significantly better. He's significantly more talented than Derek Lewis is. It's just the danger factor with Derek Lewis is the only reason why I think he has a okay chance, I'll say. And against Taliesin Teixeira is another guy. I personally thought Taliesin was better than he was. Obviously, got knocked out in 35 seconds versus Derek Lewis, but I personally still think that Taliesin may be able to beat some guys. I think he'll still be able to get in the top 7 of the heavyweight division. We'll see where he goes from here. I kind of just feel like he got caught by Derek, and even in that short fight, he did have some success. So we'll see how he does against some other guys. I really wanted to see him actually accept the fight versus Waldo Cortez Acosta, because I personally don't think Waldo's good at all, personally. And I thought Taliesin may be able to find a victory there, but he wasn't able to make the turnaround. Gaziev will maul Tom sadly. Actually, you're right. You are right. I misspoke. I apologize for that. Gaziev is the only guy that probably would give Tom trouble, and he'd probably be like a minus 10,000 or something going into that fight. Tom Cooks, so at least we know he doesn't have a glass chin. Yeah, he definitely doesn't have a glass chin, but at the same time, at heavyweight, regardless of how good your chin is, you don't want to be taking big shots. And I guess for the most part, Tom doesn't. But you're right. He did take a pretty clean shot from Sergey, and he didn't even really get rocked or anything. Like it affected him. It made him think about it in the moment, but he wasn't like rocked or anything like that. So yeah, you are right. It does seem like Tom probably has a pretty good chin, but as I said, even if you do have an amazing chin at heavyweight, Who knows how much longer you can go. Oh wow. Let's go.
How do you think you would beat Tatsuro?
Thanks so much, Scorpio. Welcome to the stream, brother. Thanks so much for the 5. Impressions of 200k arrow fighting. I suck at impressions. I apologize. Impression of fighting on wooden door. Oh my god! No, I can't do Arrow Hawani. Oh man, it's just like a nerd. I don't know. I don't know. It's just a nerd. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for the 5. I don't know, Chad. How can I do that impression? It's just like a nasally. No, man. I kind of suck. I kind of suck at impressions. Sorry, I apologize. I'm trying to think of how I can do it. But yeah. Bop, bop, bop. Bop, 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 bop. Rande. What's up, brother? Welcome to the stream. What's going on? What's going on? Thanks for the hearts. What's going on, brother? I'll throw this back up, though. I really do appreciate that, man. Thanks so much for the donation. It really does mean a lot. Love from India. Let's go, bro. Let's go. Let's go. Ilya Uptoro. But I'll give you this. No,
That was an illegal knee on the head of a grounded opponent.
On the head of a grounded opponent. Shut up, Joe. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. If I come up with a good impression, I'll do it for you. I appreciate that. Seriously, thanks so much. That was really nice of you. Favorite fighter? Probably Taporia. I think my chat knows I glazed Taporia a little bit too much, maybe, but Taporia is my favorite fighter. I just personally think he's I'll give you a like or a heart, by the way. I just personally think that he's the most well-rounded. He's the most exciting guy at this point. And his boxing is bar none. His grappling is also really good. And so yeah, probably him, but also other fighters I like. I am a fan of Pereira. I love Charles, obviously. Who else do I like? I love Steve Urseg. I'm a big Urseg fan. I know he's lost a couple in a row, but I really like Urseg. There's a lot of fighters that I like. I'm a huge Joshua Van fan. His boxing is very crisp. So I'm a big fan of him. I'm happy he was able to get to the point where he's at. Even Vinicius Oliveira, I talk about him a lot, and I know he's not that high in the rankings, but I'm a pretty big fan of him as well. Shut up, Joe, you little fool. Yeah. That was going around today on on X. All of his voice notes, they're so funny. I got this little voice box. I added a couple of them. Oh man, so funny. Is Connor the best promoter in the game? He's cooked up hands. He's talking about dude. Coked up Connor is legitimately the best promoter in the world. Like legitimately, he's so funny. I personally think Dana should probably take notes, or just sign Connor. If Connor's not going to fight in the UFC, just make him a promoter. I know Connor has wanted equity in the UFC forever. He probably deserves it, honestly. He's the biggest star ever in UFC's history. So he probably deserves it, but the UFC should just give him equity and have him as a promoter at this point. He's actually like very good at it. And he's hilarious. The thing with Mike Perry, coked up Connor is I would say he's a new mythical fighter, but he's a mythical promoter, honestly. I knew Taporia was a superstar after the Emmett fight. Yeah, me too. After that Emmett fight, it was just an insanely good performance for Taporia. Actually, it's so crazy to think about, and obviously we have the benefit of hindsight. But if you look back at Toporia's fight versus Bryce Mitchell, it was an even fight. The odds had it as an even fight, and obviously it was a pretty dominating fight by Topuria, and obviously we see where he's at now. So it is kind of crazy how some of these things happened not too long ago. Obviously, Topuria is a double champ at this point. So that's crazy. And you know what also is the other funny thing is originally when Paddy and Ilya had their beef, there was a lot of fans that wanted to see that fight happen earlier on. Obviously, it didn't happen, but there was a certain point where Topuria was the champion already after he beat Volkanovski, and he just beat Max Holloway. And at that point, a lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, imagine what would have happened if Topuria fought Paddy," which which would have been a little bit ridiculous, obviously. But now at this point, it seems like that fight actually might happen. Paddy has gotten better. I still think Topuria will probably finish him relatively easily, but still, Paddy has gotten a little bit better. And we'll see. We might actually see that fight, but it's kind of crazy. Kevin Holland, Josh Movan, Dominic Reyes, with all the Scooby-Doo boxing. Yeah, they're all fun. Definitely are fun. Dustin finally retired. Yeah, he did retire. Good career. I personally thought it was probably a good idea for him to retire at this point, just because when you look back at his fight against Max, listen, Dustin did have Max in some trouble in that second round. He hurt him pretty badly, almost found a finish. But at the same time, I kind of felt like Max was a pretty significant step ahead of where Dustin was at this point. Maybe it's just Max getting better, which actually I do think Max got significantly better. But maybe at the same time, it was also partially because Dustin is starting to slow down a little bit. And yeah, so I personally thought it was probably a good time for him to retire. But yeah, I saw Johnny Buns here when I get dude. John's gotta chill out, bro. I'm not interested in that. But Armin or Patty, choose one. Like to win the fight, or who I like better to win the fight. I think it's gonna be Armin, probably. Honestly, it's actually a close fight. It's actually a close fight because what Armin does well is find his takedowns, of course. But on the ground, Patty is really legit. I'll probably say Armin, but I think it's closer than most people may think. But on the top, if Armin is able to get a takedown on top, he's very, very good. Even against Charles, who has a great guard, he's has a very dangerous guard. But even we saw in that fight versus Armin, he does a really good job at clamping down once he is on bottom and avoiding a lot of punishment. And even with that being said, Armin was able to land a bunch of elbows in that second round. So probably Armin would win the fight, but it is close. If he makes one sort of mistake, all of a sudden Patty could change position, maybe throw up a triangle off his back, maybe find some sort of submission. So Patty is definitely very dangerous. And for Armin, honestly, maybe he would even want to keep the fight in the feet for a little bit longer than he would normally do, or that he would normally be used to. So interesting fight. Probably Armin though. It actually could happen next though, because as I said, for Ilia Topuria, it seems like it's pretty obvious. It's going to be Armin, Patty, or Gaethje next. But for Gaethje, he's just refusing to fight anybody else. And I think for Gaethje, he needs to fight somebody else if he's actually going to get a title shot. So if he's refusing to fight, it could actually be Patty versus Armin. That fight actually makes sense. For Armin, he did deserve a title shot, before he earned one, but he had to pull out due to probably miss weight, but due to an injury. And then for Patty, he is pretty low in the rankings, and his best win is over a 39-year-old Michael Chandler. So, he doesn't deserve it either. So if you match these two up against each other, I think it actually makes sense. And the winner of that fight would definitely deserve to get a title shot. But at the same time, I know Topuria was saying he really doesn't want to fight Armin for whatever reason. I actually kind of find that weird just because I think Armin is the toughest fight for Topuria. So I get it. But, I also think Topuria would beat Armin. So I don't know. It is kind of weird, I guess. But we'll see what the UFC decides to do next for him. But I guess the only sort of logic that I can see from Topuria is at this point, it seems like he wants to fight the biggest names possible. And, if that also happens to be an easier fight, I think, Topuria would enjoy that because out of Patty, Gaethje, and Armin's the toughest fight, but he's also the smallest name out of the other two. If he beats Paddy, it's a relatively big name at this point, and obviously he has the beef with Paddy, so there'll be a lot of motivation there. And if he beats Gaethje, Gaethje's a pretty big name, and also I think that's the easiest one of those three fights for for Ilya, I should say. So yeah, maybe that's his thought process. Paddy's a serious threat. He can literally beat Charles if they were ever fight. I personally think Charles would beat Paddy. I personally do. I agree with you. Paddy's better than I initially thought. In his Michael Chandler fight, I thought he was able to. Sorry, one second. I apologize, boys, but in his Chandler fight, I thought he was able to do a little bit better than I expected him to do. I actually thought Michael Chandler would win the fight, as bad of a take as it sounds at this point, but but regardless, as I said, what Paddy really does well is once he's on the ground, he looks to utilize his jiu-jitsu, find submissions, and we've been seeing a lot of that throughout his career. But if he goes up against a guy like Charles Oliveira on the ground, I think Charles may even have an edge over Paddy in terms of the grappling, for one, and for two, on the feet, it's really not that close. Charles is way more dangerous on the feet. He has a lot more weapons he can go to. He has that beautiful left hook. He has a very unique and diverse sort of skill set on the feet. And when you look at Paddy on the feet, yeah, he has power, and yeah, he has a great chin, a better chin than Charles does. But really what Paddy does on the feet is he looks to just skirt around the octagon and land leg kicks until he could eventually find a clinch situation and find a takedown. That's basically what Paddy does at this point. And I just think Charles is, even though he got knocked out by Topuria, and although he's getting a little bit older, I just feel like Charles is a tough fight for Paddy personally. Not to say that Paddy can't beat anybody in the upper rankings, because as I said, I think he actually could possibly beat Arman, but I think Charles is a tough one for him. If we're to match up leg weight, just in case title shot, Arman versus Hooker, Paddy versus Beneil, Alice versus Holloway. Yeah, I don't hate that. I personally think Gaethje doesn't deserve a title shot, but at the same time, I could see it. I mean, for Ilya, I think it makes a lot of sense, just because he'll fight a big name, and also I think it's kind of an easy fight for him. I think he can knock him out in the feet. Gaethje just gets hit way too much, and if he really wanted to, he can even take Gaethje down and submit him. That's how I personally see that fight going, but I guess I could see it happening. But yeah. And then for Arman versus Hooker, that's a good fight as well. I know Hooker was calling out, who did he call out? Max, or maybe called out Charles. But if they do Arman versus Hooker, I think that makes sense. And if Arman's able to beat Dan, then he would certainly be next in line for a title shot, I would think. And then if they do Paddy versus Beneil, that also makes sense. Actually, not that easy of a fight for Paddy. I talked about this a lot, but Beneil's actually a really good fighter. It's just the problem with him is he doesn't do well with guys that are very athletic and hit really hard. And for Paddy, he does hit very hard, but his boxing is not really there. So maybe it would honestly be kind of a tougher fight for Paddy. Good step up in competition, though, I do believe. Even though I know Beneil looks like a guy that's washed and sucks at this point, I personally still think he's kind of good. So that's an interesting one. And then Olives versus Holloway, I think that's fun. I think that is really fun. But yeah, I do personally think that is really fun. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes from here. That one good all around fight. Thursday, he's not ranked. The one. Yeah, the one. Oh, you mean are you talking about what's his face? Jared Gordon? That's what you're talking about? Yeah, the Jared Gordon fight, Paddy definitely won. Or sorry, Paddy definitely lost, I should say. He was getting pieced up in the boxing. Jared was landing clean on him. And yeah, I don't even think Jared Gordon is that good of a fighter. He has decent boxing and is a good process. But the problem with Jared, he's just very not physical. He's the opposite of physical. He doesn't hit really hard. His chin's not great. But in terms of his skill, like he's a pretty decent fighter. But I actually think that Jared Gordon fight was a huge turning point for Paddy, just because previous to that Jared Gordon fight, we used to see Paddy just put himself into boxing range, and because he hits harder than most of his opponents and he has a really good chin, he was able to find finishes over guys and have success. But in that Jared Gordon fight, we kind of saw a different side of Paddy, where he was pushing himself into that boxing range, trying to land big shots while, eating some shots. But Jared Gordon showed a pretty good ability to not get hit in that fight. And of course, he was able to land a lot of very clean right hands and left hooks on Paddy. So I think after that fight, we saw a big change from him, from Paddy Pimblett. As I said, now Paddy, what he likes to do on the feet is he kind of knows that he can't box. So he just likes to utilize footwork, stay on the outside, utilize a lot of leg kicks, maybe a couple of body kicks. But for the most part, that's what he does on the feet. And he wants to find a takedown and find a submission or find some sort of finish. I yeah, I don't really want to get into that, but yeah, I get it. Gaethje would get life-altering damage. Yeah, I agree. I know Jorge Masvidal was just talking about this recently, and I agree. Gaethje is just a really, really bad matchup for Topuria, or Topuria is a bad matchup for Gaethje. I should say. On the feet, Gaethje just gets hit way too much, and yeah, his chin has been great throughout the years, but he was knocked out by Max Holloway cold. I think that would probably happen earlier and a lot easier if he went up against Topuria. Topuria's boxing is just too good in my opinion, and yes, Gaethje is dangerous. He does hit really hard. He has a really nice uppercut. I guess the uppercut would be something that that I guess would be some sort of a weapon that Ilya might need to worry about. But outside of the uppercut, I really just feel like Topuria would just piece up Gaethje on the feet, and if he's able to land a big right hand, a left hook, maybe Gaethje would be able to eat more shots than Charles Oliveira was able to. But eventually, he would get knocked out cold, I believe, similar to what Max was able to do to him. So, yeah, it'll be a lot of damage for Gaethje. I personally don't think that that the UFC should do that. Well, I don't think it makes sense, and I guess for Gaethje, for his health, it definitely doesn't make sense. But we'll see. We'll see what the UFC decides to do from here. But listen, who knows? Maybe the UFC. Maybe the UFC would be able to do that, or would want to do that, I guess. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so that's kind of what we have. So we'll see. There definitely are a couple other matchups that that could be coming. In the near future for Topuria. Obviously, we have fights that are being talked about. For Volkanovski, we'll see what his next fight is. I personally think it's going to be Aaron Pico. I think Pico is going to beat Lerone, but we'll see. Lerone is a really good fighter. And then for Pantoja against Van, we'll see when that gets booked. But we'll see. DDQ's Max just wants, yeah, he does a really good job at making his opponents cry. He did a back-to-back with Izzy and Strickland, which is pretty impressive. It's a very different style on the mic than most guys that we consider to have great trash talking, but he's probably one of the more effective guys in terms of his trash talking. As I said, making both of those guys cry back to back. So Drickus' skills on the mic are good, and I'm pretty excited to see some of the press conferences between him and Khamzat fight week. As I said, I really hope, knock on wood, that we don't have any bad news in terms of Khamzat needing to pull out or Drickus needing to pull out. Hopefully everything goes as planned, because that's the fight of the year, in my opinion, and something I really want to see. Nobody thought Strickland would ever beat Izzy. Of course, I agree. I do agree with this. Whenever you go out there, there's always a chance. Gaethje is a good fighter. I don't want to act like he's not a good fighter, because on the feet, he does good things. Obviously, his leg kicks have been very effective for him throughout the years. And his boxing is actually solid, and he has a lot of power. And if he can land a clean uppercut, as I said, I feel like the uppercut could be a big weapon for Gaethje, especially if Topuria is getting inside that boxing range. But it is possible that Gaethje can catch Topuria. I just don't think it's super likely that he would win the fight, because skill-wise, I think Topuria is a lot better. Power-wise, I think Topuria has the more power. And even if Topuria does get caught with a big shot, it's possible he can go out. Obviously, as you said, it's a fight; anything can happen. And we've seen a lot of We've seen a lot of crazy results over the years, but Topuria at the same time has shown a really good chin as well. When he took that head kick clean and he was able to survive. He got hurt, but he was able to survive against Jai Herbert. So we'll see. World Headbutt King TDP. Yeah, he's Very interesting style, but very effective style at the same time. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in that fight. I personally think DDP is going to win, to be honest, but we'll see against Hamza. I think DDP is going to say himself. Spoken and humble. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. You might be right. You might be right. But yeah, we'll see. It's really going to come down to the first round, in my opinion. Well, I actually think it's pretty obvious. But if Hamzat's able to find a finish in the first round, then all right, it's over. But if Dricus can survive round one, even if he gets 10-8'd in the first round, I think there's a decent chance he could win the fight. I actually think there's a good chance he could win the fight. But we'll see. I could be completely off. I already have my prediction video out. I personally think Dricus is going to be able to sneak it out. But I could be wrong. We'll see. I agree. Probably JJ beats him badly. Just saying. That's it. I agree. No, I do agree with this. Yes, Topuria is going to be a very heavy favorite if they put that fight together, and I think rightfully so. But at the same time, it is a fight. That's why we all love fighting. Crazy results happen all the time. Leon Edwards finding the head kick at the end of the fifth round after getting dominated by Usman. There's always crazy results like that, and there's always huge underdogs that are able to win. And who knows, Gaethje, as I said, is very dangerous. So he can definitely come back and maybe find a big knockout or something like that. So we'll see. We will see. I have Hamzat submission round 2. Oh, that would be very interesting. Probably great value. I'm assuming Hamzat submission round 1 is probably not going to be great. But submission round 2 might be pretty good. We'll see. We'll see how his gas tank looks. I'm kind of interested, to be honest, because I know a lot of people talk about the gas tank. Even me, a huge reason why I think Dricus is going to win is because I think Hamzat's going to gas himself out. But at the same time, I think it'll be interesting to see Hamzat fight in a 5-rounder. Like, is he going to be able to pace himself a little bit better, knowing that it's a 5-round fight, or is he going to go all out in the first round? I personally think he's probably going to go all out in the first round, but it is something to think about, because if he can't get a submission or some sort of finish in the first round, just knowing that he has 4 more rounds to go instead of 2 more rounds, could be something that's in the back of his mind. So we'll see how he comes out there. As I said, I personally think he's going to go all out in the first round. I think he'll have a lot of success round 1. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 10-8 round. I actually think a good chance it will be a 10-8 round in the first round. Hamzat round 1 is probably the best fighter ever, for best round 1 fighter ever. He just takes guys down and finds submissions or finds them in really bad positions, ground and pound strikes. He has a lot of success, and I think he will be able to take down Dricus in the first round. I just think Dricus will be able to make Hamzat work a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. He still dominated Usman for part of the second round. Yeah, he did. But I personally thought it was a close one. But actually, I don't remember that fight. I was about to say I personally thought that Usman won the second round, but actually no, he did. Yeah, he did win the second round. It was a 10-8 round 1. Round 2, Usman. I believe they gave Usman the round. I don't remember it exactly, so you might be right. But if I remember properly, I thought they gave Usman the second round. Maybe not. And then round 3, Usman started to pull away a little bit when it seemed like Hamzat was getting tired. I know Hamzat broke his hand, and that was definitely a part of it. But at the same time, it did at the same time seem like Hamzat was starting to slow down a little bit. So just imagine if that was a 5-round fight, or going into this one, that will be a 5-round fight. If Dricus can survive the first round, or maybe let's say the first 2 rounds, which is a big if, but if he can do that, I personally think he can start to pull away a little bit, maybe even find a late finish. Yeah. MB, do you have any mods? I don't. Do you want to be a mod? I usually don't have that many people in stream yet. I guess that's probably why. But do you want to be a mod, MB? I can add you. I wish UFC has more Indian fighters. Yeah, they had a couple who haven't been all that successful thus far, but we'll see. We'll see what they're able to do, if they're able to find anybody else. Usman won the third. Hamzat won 2. Round 2 on 2 of the 3 judge scorecards. Some majorities. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't know. maybe we'll see how his gas tank looks in this fight. Maybe it's a little bit overblown, but we'll see. I personally thought when Hamzat fought Gilbert Burns, he didn't really look that gassed. He was a little bit gassed, but he did win the first and third round of that fight. Uh, in the third round, I thought he looked fine. But the big difference in that fight was he didn't shoot for takedowns really, and he didn't go all out. So it was less draining on him. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. He'll never have a good fighter. Oh man. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm definitely really excited to see how that fight plays out. What's even the odds on it? I think it's Hamzat's what, like a minus 200 or something. And Hamzat didn't kill himself to cut weight. That's true too. That's true too. Yeah, I mean, of course that is going to be a part of it, but I guess he didn't really do that either against Usman, and I don't know. We'll see. I do agree with you though. It is definitely a more natural weight cut for him. He was cutting way too much weight to get down originally, but now at 185, it's definitely a much easier weight cut for Hamzat. And I talk about this all the time. Actually, I just posted a video today about weight cutting. Check it out if you guys haven't seen it. But basically in that video, I talked about the more weight you cut, a lot of times the worse your cardio is going to be. And it is possible that at 170, that could have been a reason why maybe Hamzat struggled with cardio, but whatever. We'll see how it plans out. Do you have any frame autographed UFC posters? I do actually. One day I should stream downstairs. They're too big to bring up at this point, but I have a Colby Covington signed poster with Masvidal. I have a John Jones signed poster with who did he fight? It was Henry Cejudo was also on the card. I actually don't remember what it was. It was an old card, obviously. I think it was Dillashaw Cejudo and John Jones or somebody. I think that was a card. I don't remember which one that was exactly. So I have those two, and then that might be it. I actually don't remember. I got these a long time ago. I would have to check it out. I can bring it up for one of the streams, or maybe stream downstairs if I can stream on my phone quickly to show you guys. But yeah, that's what I got. What about you? Do you have any signed memorabilia or posters or anything like that? Do you think UFC No Trip will get any better? I want to go, but I don't just want to. Yeah, the card right now looks terrible. But I do think they're going to add a couple more fights. I saw they added one fight, nothing of significance, but I saw they added one more fight to that card. But I believe Kid was talking about it yesterday, and which I think is probably true. But they're probably going to add like Aldana to the card, Rosas to the card. And we'll see if they add anybody else, but both of them are probably going to be on the card. So maybe that'll make the card a little bit better. And we'll see. Can they add Moreno to the card? We'll see. I mean, Moreno versus Royval is a fight that I know both of them want. So we'll see if that happens next. It's probably, I have a feeling that's probably not going to be on that card, but it would be cool for them to put that fight on this card as the co-main event or something like that. But I don't know. I think it is going to get better. There's going to be more exciting fights that are going to be added, but the question is, like, at this point there's already a lot of fights that have been made, so there's probably only like one or two more spots. So even if those one or two extra fights are really good fights, how much better is it going to make the card? I don't know, because at this point, honestly, it's really just the main event. There's no other fights in the card that I'm really excited about. The Shirez fight could be fun, but it's not like insanely exciting or anything like that. So yeah, we'll see. Nope, too expensive. Yeah, they do get a little bit expensive. I've met Rob in person, actually, humble guy. I met with him in California last night. Oh, that's cool. Congrats. That's pretty cool. Yeah, he actually trains at a gym pretty close to me. Well, I don't think he trains there that much anymore, but I live relatively close to Ray Longo's gym, and I know he trains with Ray Longo, but I don't think he trains there that much anymore. I think he mostly trains in Arizona now, but that's cool. Austin Bosch, Virginia was saying sick fight on a week's notice. Let's go. Oh, so he did find a replacement for Bashi. That's cool. That is cool. We'd like to see how Bashi looks. Yeah, he appears to be a pretty good fighter. So we'll see how he pans out, how he turns out. Definitely excited for that one. But yeah, as I said, what is that? That's this week's card. August 2nd. Yeah, it's this week's card. So that's another decent fight added to the card. As I said for this week, there definitely are a couple of good fights, a couple of fun fights, but overall the card is not amazing. It's definitely not amazing. We'll see. Poor Omega missing on the card. Hopefully they find an opponent soon. Yeah, it does suck. That does suck. I was excited to see how he would fight. If actually that fight was on the card as well, the card actually could have been pretty good. But yeah, it was unfortunately it was canceled. He had 2 opponents, I believe, right? It was Turan's Finney, and then I believe it was somebody else that also had to pull out because of a visa issue or something. So yeah, I guess after 2 pullouts, the UFC just decided to scrap the fight. But yeah, that kind of sucks. He's an exciting fighter as well. Easier first round KO prop ruined. Yeah, it kind of sucks. That does kind of suck. Oh yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. People say Max was dehydrated, but Max. Yeah, I agree. I don't personally think there's any sort of excuses or anything for Max. You know, he was fighting at 145 forever, and yes, he moved up to 155 for one fight, but then after he got that huge KO victory, he had an opportunity to fight for the belt at 145, which he took, and I think every right he should have taken that. It made a lot of sense, but the dehydrated thing I don't really buy into that much. Maybe maybe at 155 Max is a better fighter at this point. I actually think he is, but it doesn't really matter. Ilya was at the time was a champ at 145. Max got a chance to take that shot. He took it, and he got knocked out, unfortunately. But I also personally thought Max fought a pretty good fight. He looked pretty good. Some nice counters in that fight. A lot of head kicks. Pretty good game plan, I thought, overall. I just think Taporia is just that good, personally. But, that's how it goes. And if they fought at 155, I know a lot of people think, oh, maybe it'll be a different fight. I personally think it'll be the same results, but maybe Max would have even more success. I don't know. But we'll see. Also, Taporia was just as yash as Max. Yeah, Taporia has talked about it a lot, that he has a lot of trouble, or he had a lot of trouble cutting down to 145, which is, I thought was kind of weird. I mean, he's not that big, honestly, but I guess it makes sense. He's kind of muscle bound. So I guess that's probably what it was. And yeah, I mean, obviously, he had to cut a decent amount of weight. I forgot what he said he walks around at, but it's like ridiculous, actually, for 145. So the cut to 155 is definitely a lot easier. I think the cut is also a huge reason for why Taporia moved up, alongside with becoming an all-time great by becoming a 2-division champ and fighting guys like Charles Oliveira and some others at 155. But yeah, the weight cut probably was also part of it. But we'll see. We'll see who's next for Ilya Uptoro. If I had to guess, I don't know. If I had to guess, for some reason, I feel like it'll either be Patty or Armin, probably. But we'll see. We'll see. I almost feel like, I know historically this is not how it's went, but I almost feel like Dana might just say, all right, we'll give it to Armin or something. Oh, maybe not. Kind of go back and forth, actually, on whether or not I actually believe that. But we'll see. Definitely a lot of questions to be answered about 155, title fight at 155. But yeah. No way KG's gets that fight with Taporia. Yeah, I mean, I personally don't think he deserves it, but we'll see. We'll see what the UFC decides to do. But yeah. What do you guys think of the Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico fight? You guys happy with it? Who do you think's gonna win? I think it's fine. I mean, Movsar versus Pico is more interesting in my opinion, but still, if Lerone beats Pico or if Pico beats Lerone, I think the winner of that fight is going to get a title shot. So there definitely are a lot of implications on the fight, and Lerone is a really good fighter, so it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Um, I personally think Pico has a decent chance of winning, though. So that's outside of the main event. That's another interesting one. Protez and Jeff Neal is going to be really fun. I think Protez is going to win. Relatively confident that he'll win, but we'll see. Aaron Pico will KO him. I actually kind of agree. I know. I know. What's his face? Um, Lerone is definitely a really good fighter, but he kind of reminds me of Leon a little bit. He's better than Leon is. I actually believe that. But the reason why I say he's like Leon is because he's actually pretty good everywhere. He's well rounded on the feet. He has a lot of skill. We saw his fight against Josh Emmett. He was able to kind of pick him apart and win a decision that way. But he doesn't really have that much power. And for Pico, he's had a lot of success. I know it's been a different organization. I know a lot of guys coming over from PFL/Bellator don't have a lot of success in the UFC. But when you look at the actual style Pico has, great wrestler, very explosive on the feet, decent boxing. I think that would translate pretty nicely. And specifically in a fight against Lerone, I do personally believe that it's not a bad stylistic matchup for him. Because Lerone, as I said, doesn't hit that hard. And if you can have one knock on Pico, his chin is a little bit suspect. So going up against a guy who doesn't have that many finishes or doesn't hit all that hard, I think might be a pretty good stylistic fight for Pico. But we'll see. Pico has great wrestling and same power. Lauren was getting slammed by Emmett. Yeah, that is true too. He was getting slammed by Emmett. And knocked down by Ige. I think the Ige thing is actually I actually just made a video on this. It's kind of funny, but the Ige thing is a bigger reason for why I think Pico is going to win. Just because when you talk about Lerone's fight against Josh Emmett, he kind of, yes, Emmett did slam him, but for the most part, Lerone kind of dominated Emmett. He was able to stop a lot of the takedowns, and on the feet, he was kind of just dominating. And yes, Emmett hits really hard, but he's just not technical at all. And he wasn't able to find Lerone, and Lerone was kind of able to style on him to a certain extent. But the Ige fight is a little bit different, where Ige is not the most technical guy in the world, but he's a lot more technical than Emmett is, and also he has good power, and he was able to hurt Lerone pretty significantly. So if what's his face, if Pico can go in there and utilize some of that explosive boxing and land a big shot, who knows? Maybe he can find a TKO finish or some sort of finish. And also on top of that, he has the wrestling edge in that fight. So I do think stylistically it is a pretty good fight for Pico. And then maybe we'll have Volkanovski versus Aaron Pico, which would be interesting. Definitely something that I didn't see coming a while ago. But at this point, I do think there's a good chance we see that fight next. The next title fight will be that. And then for Movsar, I guess he's kind of just left out. I personally believe he deserves a title shot, but I guess he had his chance here with a number one contender fight, even though he was already the number one contender. But this is his last opportunity, I guess, before he would get a title shot if he won that fight. But he had to pull out and wasn't able to make the turnaround. But we'll see. Kid, I don't care. He's going to 30-27 because if he's last reigns have been against absolute bombs. Murphy's being good fighters, even if they both fought way better competition. That's fair. We'll see. I mean, listen, as I said, I don't think Murphy's a bad fighter. He's a good fighter for sure. He's very skilled. He kind of reminds me of Leon a lot, actually, but outside of Leon quitting. But we'll see. You might be right. We'll see how it pans out. We shall see. But yeah, so the Protez versus Jeff Neal one, I think is a little bit more clear cut. I guess, what do you guys think about that fight? But I think it's pretty clear cut that Protez will get a finish. It'll be a fun fight. Jeff Neal does a pretty good job at getting on the inside boxing range, putting combinations together, landing big shots. And if he's able to do that, maybe he can have some success. But I personally think Protez is going to utilize range, utilize distance management, land a big left hand, and find a finish. But I think while it lasts, the fight's going to be really fun. But we'll see. Joshua thinks LeBron's going to get it done too. Yeah, you guys might be right. You might be right. We'll see how it plans out. Definitely, it's an interesting fight for sure. Whoever wins is going to get the title shot, but we'll see. Don't sleep on Neil. Insane power. He does have really good power, but I think it's kind of a different power between him and Protez. With Protez, he needs one shot to land to find a finish. For Jeff Neal, he usually puts punches together in combination. That's usually how he gets his finishes. And maybe he can get in the inside against Carlos Protez, although I think it'll be difficult. But if he is able to get in the inside and he's able to put punches in combination, then yeah, maybe he can finish Protez. It's just a thing. Obviously, Protez is so much bigger than Jeff Neal for one. He has great distance management for two, and I think his power is even better than Jeff for three. But we'll see. As you said, like Jeff does have really good power, but he's a little bit inconsistent, and I don't know. I just think in this fight, he kind of is covered by Protez in this one, but we'll see. We'll see. Even if none of us get to a firefight versus a dangerous opponent, watch wherever. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Murphy versus Barbosa was a good one. That was actually a really fun fight. Barbosa got on ridiculous juice going into that fight. It was a ridiculous amount of damage that Murphy was able to impose on Barbosa, but he didn't get finished. I actually had going into that one, I think I had Murphy like finish props in first two rounds or whatever it was, and it was like really close, but Barbosa was able to survive somehow. So yeah, it was a good fight. But I'm not saying Murphy's a bad fighter. He's a really good fighter. I just think stylistically it could be a decent fight for Pico, but we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. Jeff Neal's like Ryan Spann, great, but usually underperforms. Yeah. I think he's better than Ryan Spann, but I do see where you're coming from. He is very inconsistent. Like one fight, he'll be competitive against Shafkat. He landed a lot of shots for Shafkat, and he had a lot of success in that fight. And Shafkat, at that time at least, was perceived to be the best fighter in the division, or one of the best fighters in the division. At this point, we'll see how he pans out after all the injuries. But then in another fight, he'll look pretty bad against Vicente Luque. But Luque beat him, or who beat him not too long ago. So, definitely an inconsistent fighter, Jeff Neal is, but we'll see how he looks in this one. I personally think Protez will take it. Murphy's boring, not going to lie. Yeah, some of his fights have been a little bit boring. But as Kid did mention, his fight against Edson Barbosa was a fun one. But, yeah. Name one boring fight, though. Even that was a good scrap. Yeah, it's not bad. But yeah, then we have Cannonier and MVP. Kind of a weird fight, in my opinion, but I think Cannonier's going to get it done. I checked the betting odds not too long ago, and Cannonier's like a plus 150. And I guess I get that he is a little bit older. Not that MVP is young, but I guess that he is. I get that he is a little bit older. But personally, I think he has this type of style to beat MVP. At range, he'll have a lot of issues. I don't think anybody could really strike effectively against MVP at this point at range. But I believe Cannonier is a lot more physical than MVP is. He'll be able to pressure, get alongside the cage, clinch, and from the clinch he can land a lot of knees and elbows, maybe even find a takedown against MVP, who's not a great grappler. And maybe Cannonier can find a finish if he can get it on top, or if not, just grind his way out to a decision victory by utilizing wrestling and clinching. But we'll see. That's personally how I see the fight going. Kind of a weird fight, but we'll see how it pans out. And then, as I said before, Tim Elliott versus Kai Sakura is a kind of a weird one. Going from Pantoja to Tim Elliott is a weird back-to-back couple fights for Kai Sakura. But yeah, what are you going to do? I think this is probably one where Kai can style on Tim Elliott at least a little bit. And I think Kai's most likely going to win the fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if he found a finish. He is exciting, a very exciting fighter, Kai is, and he has a lot of weapons he can go to, and And even though it's a flyweight division, usually you don't see finishes. I do think Kai's going to be a guy who's going to find a couple finishes at this weight class. But outside of those, main card fights, there's not really much on 319. Bobby Green versus Diego Ferreira is not that exciting to me. Mir Shark versus Olajaychuk, not really that exciting to me. Lupi Godinez versus Andrade, like whatever. Alexander Hernandez versus Chase Hooper could be interesting, but not that exciting. And then Barbosa versus Close. Barbosa is always in fun fights, so that could be good. And then Brian Battle versus Ruzaboyev. That's an interesting one. Ruzaboyev, I personally don't think is that skilled, but he's kind of a freak where he's like the biggest guy in the division for one, and for two, he hits really, really hard. And Brian Battle is a guy that takes maybe more shots than you would like him to take. So that's interesting, and so I guess we'll see how that one pans out. But in terms of skill, I think Brian Battle's more skilled, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got caught in that fight. But yeah, that's kind of 319. It's a really good card, really, really good main card, and the rest of it is fine. But yeah. Cannonier is and always been slept on. I agree with you, Joshua. He is always slept on. I don't really get the odds in the MVP fight, and outside of that, he's been slept on a bunch. But he's a really good fighter. I know he's old at this point, but he was in a lot of competitive fights versus good fighters. I know the Adesanya fight wasn't a great look for him, but outside of the Adesanya fight, he's been very competitive against a lot of great young fighters. And as I said, at this point, he's like 42 or something ridiculous, and he's still kind of at the upper echelon of his division. So I personally think he'll get a victory here, and I personally think he's still a good fighter, but he is fighting time at the same time. So we'll see how much longer Cannonier can go, but I was always personally a fan of him. I mean, if I was warned, I'm finishing the same. Let's see finishes. All right. Little Lerone banter here. But yeah, and then after 319, we have the China card, which is good. I was actually happy to see they didn't take off Sergey versus Waldo Acosta from this card. I heard there were some rumors of Waldo Acosta being the main event of this card, this upcoming card, but I'm happy to see that they didn't do it. But we'll see. We'll see how that fight pans out. That should be a good one. Sergey versus Waldo. I think Sergey is probably going to finish him relatively quickly, but we'll see how that one pans out. Tulio versus Michel Pereira, probably also an early finish for Tulio. Ortega versus Sterling, I think is the best fight in the card. That's a really, really high-level fight, high-level grappling fight, and we'll see who can get the edge. I almost feel like for Aljamain Sterling, though, he probably has an advantage on the feet over Brian Ortega. Maybe he might even want to keep the fight on the feet, utilize leg kicks and body kicks, and maybe some awkward shots that he can land here and there on the feet, and maybe he can get a victory like that. Not the most exciting way to win, but maybe he can win the fight like that. But if the fight does go to the ground, both of these guys are great, great grapplers. Aljamain Sterling, everybody kind of knows him for his jiu-jitsu, and obviously he has great jiu-jitsu, but his wrestling is also really good. And I know he came up from 135, but even for 145, he is still pretty big. And against Brian Ortega, I think he can have a lot of success in the wrestling. As you know, he kind of went toe-to-toe with Movsar in his last fight. Yes, he did lose a fight against Movsar, Aljo did, but it was very close, and I thought he kind of made a mistake at the end of that third round, and if he didn't make that mistake, Aljamain could have beat Movsar, and we could be talking about Aljamain fighting Aaron Pico or him fighting somebody else as the number one contender fight, and maybe Aljamain could have been pretty close to getting a title shot relatively soon. So yeah, that's going to be a good one. And then Johnny Walker versus Big Bang Zhang Minyang is kind of shameless matchmaking in my opinion. Johnny's probably going to get KO'd. It's kind of getting old at this point, just seeing this guy getting KO'd so much. He's taken a lot of damage over the years. I would personally like to see him retire. But the UFC keeps giving him guys that have a lot of power. So I guess we have to go through another Johnny Walker KO, probably even worse than some of the other ones. Then we have Sumadarji and Kevin Borjas. That's a fun one. Loner Kavanaugh and Charles Johnson. That's a really good one. Loner's a great fighter. And Charles Johnson is one of those guys that I think is actually a pretty good fighter as well, but they just match him up against a lot of really good guys, and He's just a little bit behind some of those great fighters, but Charles Johnson is still a good fighter, in my opinion. Decent wrestling, decent striking, pretty powerful. And we saw when he went up against Joshua Van, he did lose like basically the whole fight against Van, but he was at the same time able to land a perfectly timed uppercut and with a lot of power, and he knocked out Joshua Van, or TKO'd Van. So there's definitely some interest with Charles Johnson. We'll see what he does, and definitely step up in competition for Lohner. So that's a good fight. But yeah, Lohner, let's go. Even Tabori City's the future. Yeah, Lohner's a great fighter. He's a really good fighter. Very well-rounded fighter as well. So I'm excited to see him get a little bit of a step up in competition here. We'll see how he does against Charles, and I think he'll probably do pretty well. But assuming he does do well, then we'll see. Maybe he gets a ranked opponent after that. He probably will. If he does beat Charles, he'll probably get a ranked opponent next. We'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, the week after that, we have Imavov and Caio Borralho. Great main event. Really fun main event. It seems to be a #1 contender fight at this point. But outside of that main event, there's not that much on the card. I'm assuming they're going to be adding some fights to it. But there's nothing that's, really exciting on this card. But usually when they go to Paris, the crowd's great. So I guess that'll be something to look forward to. And as I said, the main event is really good. Imavov and Caio Borralho. So that's good. And then, after that, we have the terrible card, Diego Lopez and Gene Silva, and which is good, but then the rest of the card is terrible for UFC Noche. But, yeah. UK crowds are the best, bro. UK crowds are very, very good as well. I agree. They do get really loud, and especially if Patty's fighting, the crowd is great there. Even if Tom or Leon or whoever, any one of their guys that are fighting, it's always amazing. And even in general, even if their guys aren't fighting, it's a great crowd, great atmosphere. There's a lot of places that the UFC goes to in Europe that seem to have great crowds, and the UK is definitely one of those crowds for sure. But yeah. Is there a date where the UFC is going back to the UK by chance? I don't think so, right? Not yet. I'm assuming they will go, but not yet. Or did they already go earlier on in the year when they were fighting at like 2 a.m. or whatever, or 5 a.m.? Was that this year? I think it was. Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades. When was this? I know that was not this year. No, that was a while ago. But yeah, so that's weird. They haven't went this year to the UK, or am I forgetting about it? But yeah, what could you do? But yeah, I also wanted to check some of the betting odds for this upcoming weekend to see if there's any value. So Rubovich is a -280. I think that's accurate. No value there. Vallejos is -500. Probably accurate as well, to be honest. What else? Do we have anything else of interest? No, not really for this week, honestly. Then for next week, Anthony Hernandez is a -400 versus Roman Dolidze. I think I favor Fluffy, but maybe some value on Dolidze, to be honest. Can you show the full Apex card? Yes, I can. Let me go back to it. Here you go. So yeah, main event, Tatsuro Taira versus Hungsung Park. Then Rebetsky and Chris Duncan. Then Brenner versus Rubovich. Honestly, the top three are fine. They're not amazing, but they're fine, I guess. Not that bad. And then Caro Rosa versus Nora, whatever. Neil Magny versus Dos Santos is kind of whatever. Vallejos is a fun prospect. It's always fun to see him fighting, and it's a pretty good fight versus Danny Silva. So that should be interesting. And then on the prelims, kind of just like whatever fights, in my opinion. But yeah, this is what we got right now. I don't know if everything's already loaded in here to this card, but I guess at this point, this is what the card looks like. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's not that bad. Um, but we'll see how it pans out. And obviously, as I said, a lot of cards that fans are like not that excited about usually turn out to be a little bit better than you expect. Because listen, at the end of the day, it is MMA, and yeah, there a lot of these guys are able to find finishes or put on fun performances. So we'll see. We'll see how the fight turns out. Um, but yeah, we have a 13-0 contender here. I believe he fought in the UFC before. Yeah. I actually don't remember this fight, but we'll see how he does. It is unfortunate though because Andre Lima was a guy who I'm really, really high on, and I was excited to see him fight on this card. But I guess he had an injury or something. I didn't really hear anything about it, but I guess he's off the card with some sort of an injury. But yeah, I mean the card's fine. The card's fine. Um, okay. Um, this guy's gonna sell me something on Kick. Not interested in that. But yeah, that's kind of what we have. It's kind of what we have. Um, but yeah. Anyways, I think I may. Actually, no, I won't. No, I won't. I think the weight cut will be easy for Yuri. I agree. I think the cut will probably be easy for Yuri. I also thought they did a pretty good job at or I don't know if they did a pretty good job, but I thought it made a lot of sense that he's going to be the backup fighter for the main event of that same card, just because he's going to be cutting weight anyway for the same time, so it's not like he needs to cut weight twice or something like that. So he's cutting weight to make weight against Roundtree or for the main event for the title fight. So yeah, it makes sense for him to be a backup fighter, and yeah, and it seems like the UFC at this point is putting more of an emphasis on backup fighters. Maybe there was, I mean, obviously there's always been backup fighters throughout the years, but I feel like there's been a bunch of cards where one guy had to pull out and the UFC was kind of scrambling and calling guys last second to fill the card. That's why Pereira was fighting so many times and why Volkanovski had to fill in last second because they didn't really have a backup fighter. Actually, I think they did have a backup fighter for the Volkanovski one, but they just decided to skip over him. But yeah, so it makes sense for Yuri. He KO'd John Malone when he was 210, and it was insane power. Yeah, his power is great. Yuri's power is great. And he's also been making pretty good improvements as well, as we saw in the Jamal Hill fight, as his head movement was really, really good. Utilizing that sort of head movement against Jamal Hill, I think, is a little bit easier than he would be able to do it against someone like Pereira or maybe even an Ankalaev. But the head movement, the head movement was much improved, and his defensive striking was much improved in that fight versus Jamal Hill, and he put on a really good performance. He was able to, slip and rip a bunch of times, counter very effectively on Jamal Hill, land big shots, dropped him a bunch of times until eventually he was able to finish him. So really good performance for Jiri Prochazka against Jamal, and we'll see where he's able to go from here. He also had the flu against Jamal, which affected his cardio and powers. Oh, I didn't even know that actually. Yeah, that actually makes it even that much more impressive. If he had the flu going into that fight. But yeah, great performance from Yuri. At this point, I mean, he hasn't fought in a while. I know it was by design. He was studying for college, but regardless, he didn't fight in a while, and he's going up against a guy in Khalil Roundtree who's been pretty active and relatively successful as of late. As now they both have a common victory over Jamal Hill, dominating victory both of them had over Jamal. So we'll see how that fight pans out. I think there are advantages for Yuri in that fight, as he is going to be bigger than Roundtree. He's probably going to be more powerful, although Roundtree is powerful. And I think the pressure might be big in that fight as well. So we'll see how it pans out for Yuri and Khalil Roundtree. But it's going to be fun. I personally think it's probably going to be the most fun fight in the card. I think it's probably a guaranteed finish. And the main event of Pereira and Ankalaev is probably going to be good too. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a finish either way in that one. So that could be interesting. And then Merab versus Corey. I mean, listen, I'll watch it, and I like watching Merab fight. He's usually an entertaining fighter. But I personally think Rob's going to have a pretty easy time with Corey. I think he's going to pressure him, take him down, tire him out by the third round, and either find a decision or possibly find some sort of submission victory late. That's how I see the fight going. Most likely a decision. But I just don't really think Corey has much of a chance in this fight. But listen, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, obviously, and we'll see how that fight pans out. But yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Around you, his movements in the first second round, around 30 yards, pushing. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I do think Khalil Roundtree is a really good fighter, and I think he showed it off in a lot of his fights, actually, but especially against Jamal Hill with his leg kicks, with his movement, his ability to stay safe. And he's also pretty technical. I mean, listen, there's aspects of Roundtree's game that are not technical with his standing hammer fists, or his ridiculous overhand rights or lefts, I should say. Those are obviously not that technical, but for the most part, he is technical. He does a good job at throwing body kicks, leg kicks, even head kicks at times, and has a pretty good jab. Like, there's a lot of things that Roundtree does well, and there definitely are some things that Jiri is going to need to worry about going into this fight, potentially getting countered by a big puncher in Roundtree. A lot of leg kicks, I believe, Roundtree will look to utilize the same way. A similar approach to what he had against Jamal, I think, it will be a similar thing to what he does in this fight against Jiri. Because obviously Jiri in the past has struggled with leg kicks a little bit in a couple of his fights versus Pereira and even versus Rakic when they fought. So I do think leg kicks are probably going to be a big part of Roundtree's game, but we'll see how it pans out. Definitely a really fun fight. And who knows? Maybe it will just come down to whoever lands first. I actually think there's a decent chance it comes down to that. And those type of fights are always really fun. So we'll see how it pans out. And then for actually, Rakic is fighting on 321 versus Mozakanev. I think Mozakanev is going to win, personally. I know a lot of people ask me about Rakic and a lot of the matchups that I'm putting together. I'm like, oh, Rakic might lose that fight or whatever. I actually still think Rakic is a good fighter. At range, he's a great fighter. He has a really good leg kick, one of the better leg kicks in the entire UFC. He has a good high kick, good body kick. At range, his striking is pretty good. His boxing is solid. Jab, left hand. He does a lot of good things, but it's just, if you're able to get on the inside against Rakic, you can really have a lot of success. His chin's not great. His defensive boxing in the pocket is also not great. And I think we saw Jiri kind of figure that out, where in the first round, Rakic was kind of piecing up Jiri and just beating him. But in the second round, Jiri was like, to hell with this. I'm just going to get the inside, land a big shot. He did, and he found the finish. So, yeah. Jiri chads his way to a victory. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, actually, what I was just talking about, I think probably will happen. I think he'll chat his way to a victory, or I think he chatted his way to a victory, if that makes sense, when he fought Rakic. Whereas I said, in the first round, he was losing leg kicks and fighting at range, but in the second round, he just said, to hell with it. I'm going to get on the inside, land a big shot. He did, and he found a finish. So I guess it theoretically could be a similar fight here as well, but I think the inside boxing of Roundtree is much better than Rakic's. But we'll see. Zamat round 2 KO. I think I would probably agree with that one. Yeah, I would agree. Maybe round 1, Rakic will do a good job at landing leg kicks, keeping the fight at range a little bit. But as the fight does progress, I think Azamat will find more opportunities to get on the inside and land a big shot. And he hits really hard. He's also relatively technical. Doesn't look like he would be that explosive, but he is. So if he can find one shot, which I think he will, he'll probably find the KO. So I agree with you. Every one of yours has been a war except Poatan. Yeah. They've all been really fun. Even the Poatan one, it wasn't a war. Poatan kind of just dominated Jiri, for being honest. But even the Poatan fight was really fun. So there's never been a fight that Jiri has been in that hasn't been fun. He always goes for it. He's either going to knock out his opponent, or at times when he does lose, I guess, he'll get knocked out by Poatan. But Jiri's a great fighter. I'm definitely excited to see what he's able to do in this one. And as I said, it's going to be a really fun one between him and Roundtree. But it'll be interesting to see, for sure. But if Poatan beats Ankalaev and Yuri beats Roundtree, where do you think the UFC goes from there? I think it'll be tough to make Poatan versus Yuri 3 after Poatan knocked him out. Not only beat him, but knocked him out twice, and the second one was very dominant, I thought. And yes, Yuri probably made some improvements and some adjustments. His head movement was really good in the Jamal Hill fight, but still, I personally think Poatan just kind of has Yuri's number. His striking is just a little bit too technical and more technical than some other guys, alongside with his ridiculous power. I just think it's a bad fight for Yuri, but it'll be interesting to see. Like if that sequence does happen, where does the UFC go from there? I don't know. I'd watch Yuri versus Alex every time. I agree. Like it's going to be a great fight. It's just interesting, like from the UFC's perspective, like what do they do? Do they just give it to Yuri anyway? Or I mean, Yuri probably would deserve it. I mean, he would have a couple wins after being a champ previous in a row if he's able to beat Jamal, which he already beat, and then after that, if he beats Roundtree, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. If Alex wins, he would move up. That's true. I do agree with that. Yeah, so maybe that will solve everything. If Alex beats Ankalaev, he'll just move up and try to fight Tom for the heavyweight belt. Or maybe he'll fight a number one contender fight at heavyweight and then fight Tom. We'll see how it pans out. But yeah, obviously Alex has been talking about it a lot, about potentially moving up. And if he beats Ankalaev in the rematch, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he decides to move up. And I mean, he's looking pretty big at this point. There was a video that came out about him recently that says he's walking around at like 240 something, 250 maybe, which is kind of crazy. It just seems like, when he was at 185, he was walking around at a ridiculous weight for someone who fights at that weight class. Now he moves up to light heavyweight and he's still walking around like significantly heavier than most light heavyweights. So it is interesting to see. And if he's at heavyweight, he'll probably walk around 350 pounds. It's so weird that Alex just keeps growing, essentially. But yeah, I agree. He probably would move up, honestly. You'll think no chance of Alex on 3 with an Alex. I don't think so. I personally don't think so. Maybe eventually, if Alex fights long enough, and Ankalaev gets a couple wins, maybe we can see that. I just don't personally think it's super likely, just because if Alex beats Ankalaev, even if he stays at light heavyweight, I don't think the UFC has much appetite for giving Ankalaev a shot. If you remember back, there was a couple times where Ankalaev should have got the shot. He should have got it before Roundtree got it, and I believe even the fight before that one, maybe there was an argument to be made that Ankalaev should have got the title shot. But similar to what they're doing with Mosar, maybe not as bad as the Mosar example, but similar to what they're doing with Mosar, they were really holding back Ankalaev, because even though he is a striker, my opinion, he's a little bit of a boring fighter, which is ironic because he is a striker. But I think the UFC saw that and they didn't really want to give him the title shot for a little bit. Eventually they had to because he kept winning. But yeah, I think if Pereira beats Ankalaev, especially if he finishes him, I think it's very unlikely that that the UFC is like, all right, we'll give you another shot at the title. But if it's a close fight, the best chance Ankalaev would have to getting a third fight between him and Alex would be if it's a really close fight and a lot of people think it's a robbery. That would be the best chance that he would have. But I personally don't think so. I think Alex either will just move up, or if he stays at light heavyweight, the UFC wouldn't have much interest of him fighting Ankalaev again. That's what I personally think, but we'll see. I guess it's possible. We'll see. What about Volkov and Jalton Almeida? Who do you guys think is going to win there? Who do you think Bryce defeats in the bantamweight top 10? Let's see. I personally wasn't super high on Bryce's performance, to be completely honest, but he got the win, and it was a good win. So would you say top 10? Yeah, top 10. Let's see. Could Bryce beat Cejudo? Actually, that might be a tough fight for Bryce. Cejudo has pretty good takedown defense, and on the feet, I think he's better than Bryce. Rob Font, maybe Rob Font. You could be Rob Font. Batista, I think that's a tough fight for him. Cheeto, yeah, Bryce probably could beat Cheeto, but the danger is always going to be there. But yeah, Bryce could probably beat Cheeto. Could Bryce beat Figueiredo? Probably not, honestly. Could Bryce beat Song Yadong? probably not, in my opinion. Could Bryce beat Corey? Uh, I don't think so, but maybe. Could he beat Jan? Definitely not. Could he beat Umar? Definitely not. Sean O'Malley? Most likely not. And Marab? Most likely not also. Um, so guys he could beat, probably Rob Font or Cheeto Vera. I'll say those are guys he could beat. Um, is me or Bryce striking his regrets? He looked good against. Yeah, I agree. I thought his striking didn't look great in his last fight. Maybe that's a part of him moving down. I mean, listen, he looks fine at bantamweight to me personally, but people talk about this all the time, and it is legitimate that when you're moving down in weight class, you're going up against guys who are much faster than you're used to. Also, the weight cut could affect your cardio. It could affect your chin. So maybe part of it was due to the weight cut, but I agree with you. I do think his striking regressed a little bit and didn't look great. At a certain point, he was never an amazing striker or anything like that, but I thought he was a more effective striker than he showed lately, I guess I should say. When he fought Gene Silva, he really just had no answers at all. Now, Gene's an amazing fighter, and I almost felt like Price was scared in there, and I don't even blame him. But Gene is just a great fighter, and he kind of just dominated that night. But in his last fight as well at bantamweight for Bryce, his striking didn't look great, but his game plan was mostly just grappling, I guess. Imagine Bryce versus O'Malley. That'd be so weird. O'Malley's in a weird spot at this point because he's somehow still the number one contender, which makes no sense. But after losing twice to Merab, there's no way the UFC can give Sean another shot. Even if he beats Umar, I don't think he would. And Umar already has another fight booked against Batista. But theoretically, even if O'Malley fought Umar and he beat Umar, I still don't think you can give Sean a title shot off that. He's going to have to get at least 2 or 3 wins under his belt before he gets another title shot or can even think about getting another title shot. But when you look at some of the guys around him, I mean, most of these guys are scheduled for fights. But when you look at some of the guys around him, I think they're tough fights for him. I think Umar's a really tough fight for Sean. Jan's a tough fight for Sean. I know Sean already beat Jan before, but close fight. A lot of people think Jan won. Corey Sandhagen versus Sean is a great fight. I think Sean could beat Corey, but that's a great fight. Song Yadong versus Sean. I think Sean could beat Song, but good fight. Figgy versus Sean. Figgy versus Sean would be such a weird fight. But Sean probably could win, honestly. Cheeto, he already dominated him. Batista, we'll see. I don't know. He's just kind of in a weird spot, though. Most of the guys around him already have fights booked, and it seems like Sean's kind of getting left out. But even if he does get a couple wins, I still don't think he's going to get a title shot. He would have to get a lot of wins. So I don't know. For Sean, does he look to put on more weight and move up to featherweight? Obviously, Toporia's not there anymore, and I know Sean. Good for him. He's being honest, but I know Sean was talking about him being like ridiculous for wanting to call out Topuria or wanting to fight Topuria, and he's happy that fight never happened. But since he's not there at featherweight anymore, does Sean look to move up? Maybe put on a little bit more weight. He's very tall for bantamweight, so maybe he can put on more muscle and move up to featherweight and try to fight some of those guys. We'll see. I don't really know what's next for Sean, to be honest. And yeah, as I said for Bryce, there's just a couple guys I think he can beat in the top 10 of bantamweight. But listen, things can change quickly, of course. He can have a couple fights against unranked guys or some lower ranked guys, and he can look more impressive, maybe make some improvements and get a couple wins. And who knows, maybe he could beat some of those guys that I think at this point that he wouldn't beat. So who knows? Create your own rankings. You can rankings. All right, I'll do it. Let's see. UFC rankings. Here we go. Fan rankings. Select your weight class. All right, here we go. Fan rankings. Could you see my screen? Let's see. I think you could. Behind the stream here. Yes, you can. All right. Which weight class should we do, boys? Which weight class? Should we do bantamweight or should we do flyweight? Or should we do middleweight? Or should we do light heavyweight? Or lightweight, sorry. Or welterweight? I don't know. Lightweight. All right, we'll do lightweight. So champion, that's pretty easy. Tatsuro. Number one contender. Let's just take Islam out. He's not fighting at this weight class anymore. So number one contender, Armin. I think it's probably fair. I think Armin's probably the number one contender. Charles is a number two contender. I love Charles. Honestly, personally, I might even put Max ahead of Charles. Honestly, yeah. So I think that's what I would do. I would have Armin 1, Max 2, Charles 3, Gaethje 4. Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. Dan Hooker at 5 is fair. Gamrot at 6. Gamrot lost his last fight. Put Max over Charles. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that actually. Gamrot at 6. What was Gamrot's last fight? He lost, right? When he lost to Dan Hooker in his last one. Beneil's coming off a win. Do I put Beneil over Gamrot? No, I can't. I'll leave Gamrot at 6. I'll put Beneil at 7. Patty at 8. I'd probably honestly put Patty over Beneil. I'll put Patty at 7. Put Patty over Gamrot. Oh, I mean, this is hilarious. We have the same thoughts here. Yeah, so I think I would have Patty over Beneil. And then for Fiziev, I mean, he's lost a couple in a row to Gaethje, actually. So I'll keep him at 9. You could make the argument that he should be over Beneil, but I think I would keep him personally at 9. Moicano at 10. All right, I won't move it for now. Then Chandler at 11. This is so crazy seeing Chandler at 11, considering where he was, previous. Then BSD at 12. This is going to be controversial. I might put BSD at 10. Is that crazy? I know he didn't fight a great guy in his last fight. But yeah. Dariush has a win over Gamrot. You are right. Yeah, he does. Dariush does have a win over Gamrot. Yeah, so you might be right. Maybe I should do this then. Is that ridiculous, chat? You are right, though. He does have a win over... actually a pretty dominating win over Gamrot, but that was a little bit ago. Gamrot did just lose his last fight. Maybe I would have it like this. I don't know if this is ridiculous. Beneil at 6. I feel like Beneil at 6 might be too high, though, coming off of his Moicano win. And the 2 fights before that, he lost via KO. Unless I put Patty over Beneil. Maybe I do it like that. I would remove Dawson IDK with any. Grant Dawson is he got knocked out by Bobby Green with 1 punch. I mean, Grant Dawson he's a good grappler, but I don't personally think he's gonna be that great. And can that be BSD over BSD over who? Oh, Moicano. Yeah, all right, you're probably right. So I mean, Joel Alvarez, I think, is moving up, but let's just pretend he's still here. So, all right, this is probably how I would have it personally. This would be the rankings for me. Armin at 1, Max 2, Charles 3, Gaethje 4, Hooker 5, Patty 6. Might be a little too high for Patty, honestly. But Patty 6, Beneil 7, Gamrot 8, Fiziev 9, Moicano 10. BSD 11, Chandler 12, Alvarez 13, and Grant 14. But Alvarez is moving up. So I guess he shouldn't even be here. And then for Grant Dawson, he hasn't fought in a long time. But, all right. I guess he's in the rankings. Let's see. Is there any unranked guys that we can add here that would make sense? Matt Frivola. Kidding. Good list. Thank you. Thank you, bro. Let's see if I can replace Grant with anybody. Hell, like Quinta. What the fuck? He's been retired forever. Should we put Jubilee on the list? Who else? Connor. Ruffian. Oh, that's a good one. Where's Rufy? No, I could just search it. All right, we'll put Ruffian. So, because we took out Islam, we had an extra spot. So we could do this. We could do Rufy at 14. Out MJ in there. Should we throw Michael Johnson in there? All right, why not? So we'll take out Grant and we'll throw MJ in. There we go. Perfect list. Actually, listen, MJ actually had a really good performance in his last fight. But yeah. All right, we'll go with it. This is our list. Armin, Max, Charles, Gaethje, Hooker, Patty, Dariush, Gamrot, Fazeev, Moicano, BSD, Chandler, Alvarez, Rufy, MJ. MJ goated. Yeah. It's so weird though. Honestly, I legitimately feel like MJ should be better than he even is. Like he has good performances against good fighters, but when he goes up against bad fighters, he just gets knocked out. It's so weird to see. But yeah. What are you gonna do? But yeah, I don't mind that list. Should we do another weight class? How do we go back? Am I an unk, boys? All right, there we go. What other weight class should we do? Or should we do the pound for pounds list? What should we do, chat? What should we do? Should we do... let's do... I'm going to do a pound for pounds list. Fuck it. All right. Well, the problem is I kind of agree with the pound for pound list. So there might not be that many movement. Pound for pound list. Yeah, all right. Deporia 1, I agree with. Islam 2, I agree with. Marab 3, I agree with. Drickus 4, I agree with. Pantoja 5, I agree with. Volk 6. Crazy or no, chat? Crazy or no? All time Volk is obviously better, but right now, this is crazy. Put Pantoja over DDP. Yeah, it's probably fair. All right, Pantoja over DDP. If DDP beats, or I'll put it this way: if DDP beats Hamzat, especially if he finds a finish late somehow, I think DDP would be here. To me, he would be there. Oh, Tom, dude, I forgot about Tom. But all right, for right now, we'll do this. We'll do this. Is JDM ridiculous chat at 6 over Volk? Is that crazy? I kind of feel like it makes sense. Then Tom over Magomed. Yeah, I agree with. Tom over Volk, is that nuts? Well, he has no title defenses, but Volk is a little bit older at this point, and he technically doesn't have any title defenses. So all right, we'll get a little wild here, chat. I think I'm gonna leave it like this. Then Pereira at 10. I'll put Max over Pereira, and then Bilal at 12. Yeah, I don't really agree with that actually. I think Armin's better. Hamzat should be higher. And yeah, like that. Maybe I'll do that. I went a little bit rogue, chat, but so I don't mind that. And then maybe we can throw Billy Alcantara in there. I don't know. At like 1, maybe. Like that. Not bad, right, chat? Patronus Finney. All right, fine. We'll do that. We'll throw Finney in there. I would put Jiri top 15. All right, Finney. All right, how about this? Billy is 1, Finney 2. Fair? You would put Jiri though. All right, if we're being serious now, we'll take these boys out. Jiri over Bilal. The thing about Bilal, I don't want to hate on him too much. I mean, he was a champion, and he did get a bunch of wins in a row. Jiri over Bilal. Is that the list? Like a legitimate list? Is this a good one? I went a little bit crazy. JDM and Tom over Volk, which maybe a lot of people wouldn't agree with. But I have Max over Alex, which I feel good about that. I think Max is kind of the best he's ever been at this point. We'll see how he does in some of his performances coming up, but I kind of like that. And then Armin and Hamzat and Charles and Yuri, I guess, over Bilal. Yeah, this is the list. I kind of feel good about it. Um, but yeah, that's not bad. Not a bad list. Chat. Is Hamza even? I guess. I guess that is a good question. Well, if he obviously if he's a champion, he will. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he probably is. He probably is. The way he was able to beat Whitaker. I know Whitaker's a little bit older at this point, and say whatever you want, but we saw it in his last fight versus RDR. It's ridiculously hard to take down Whitaker, even if you have a big size advantage over him. As I said, RDR looked double the size of Whitaker, and he had a lot of trouble taking Whitaker down. So the fact that Hamzat was able to do that in the first round and submit him immediately, I know his teeth broke, but that was obviously a part of the squeeze of Hamzat Chimaev. I personally thought that was a very, very good win for him. And obviously, he's had a lot of dominant wins. Even the Kamaru Usman one was a good win for him. So yeah, I personally think he deserves to be in the pound for pound. But I see what you're saying. I mean, I know he hasn't fought that much, especially as of late, and yeah, but yeah, I think he probably is. But yeah, maybe my chat. I'm not my chat. My list was a little bit too disrespectful to Bilal potentially, but I felt good about it. But yeah, what else we got here? Should we do more fan rankings? Oh, there's a PFL card this week. Logan Storley, forget it. No, there's nothing on this card. Do you guys watch PFL? Chat. I watch it if there's like nothing on and I'm doing nothing, but every time I watch it, I get annoyed because the production's so bad, and a lot of times the fights kind of suck too. But he says no, yeah, it's PFL kind of sucks. Whatever. What's interesting that's coming on soon? I know we have some cards, Apex cards, but when does Contender Series start? Like a week or two or something like that? That'll be something to watch. I watched Ngannou destroy Fajeda. Yeah, I watched that too. I was so disappointed actually, just because that was like the biggest fight in PFL history, and it wasn't even close. The event was a complete disaster. For one, they made no money on the event. They literally made no money in pay-per-views. Something like ridiculous, some number that was ridiculously low. And also, you have to remember they're paying Ngannou a ridiculous amount of money, and in his contract, it said they had to pay Fajeda a ridiculous amount of money as well. So that main event alone put them in the red for the event itself. The fight itself is terrible. Francis was able to take down Fajeda pretty easily, destroyed him on the ground, knocked him out not too long after that. So the fight wasn't great. The arena was also a disaster just because there was like no one there. This is the biggest fight in PFL history. There was nobody there. I believe the co-main event was fine. I was like barely been watching, but it was like Cyborg versus whoever she fought. It was like kind of fun, I guess. But if that's like your main fight that's exciting, it's probably a pretty bad event. So it was kind of a disaster all around. So yeah, the PFL is a mess in my opinion. But we'll see. I think they should just release Francis. I really do. They can't afford to pay him. Just release him. Have Francis sign with the UFC. Dana needs to get over it and do Ngannou versus Tom. Just put it together. Why not? It's so much more exciting than Tom versus Gon or Tom versus I don't know, Volkov or whoever else they'll match him up against, or Almeida. So that's what I think, but Dana's probably not going to get over it, and they're probably not going to sign Francis. Unfortunate is unfortunate. What do I want to look up? Let's see. Is there anything new? Anything new? Yeah, I think we talked about this before, but Bashi is fighting on this card. Austin Bashi will be it on it. It was Joe Rogan's B-Day. Ah, perfect. Oh, Dana. Damn
That was an illegal knee on the head of a grounded opponent.
it. Dana's Pencil. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Dana, it was his birthday, yeah. I saw a lot of AI photos about that. Did you guys see that interview? I'm sure you have it. It's hilarious. Of when Sage Steele, I believe it was interviewing Dana White, and she thought he was Joe Rogan. That was so funny. Yeah, what's going on, brother? Welcome. Prime Dustin versus Prime Edson. Dustin, I think. Dustin, just because Edson made gas. Prime Edson was insane, but he made gas, and Dustin has proved the ability to take the damage and survive and win fights late. I think Dustin, but great fight though. Great fight. There's a ground the knee to a damn opponent. Call the cops. Connor's so funny. I love his Michael Chandler thing. He's like, Conor McGregor. So funny. Coked out Connor's the best. John, what's going on, brother? What about Edson versus Yair? Prime Edson versus Yair? Edson. People forget, man. Price Speed, Barbosa, Anna Gracie, and Magomed. He's the GOAT. That's fair. That is fair. That when he fought Gracie, it was absurd. I don't know how that guy's in the UFC. I'm assuming he got cut at this point. I don't even know, but he shouldn't fight. Even if he didn't get cut, he probably shouldn't fight in the UFC anymore. Yeah, he has great jiu-jitsu, but he has no striking at all, and he refuses to strike. And yeah, people with the Alzheimer's forget, man. People forget, man. Leg kicks are huge. Joe loves to talk about the calf kick. Frickin' Joe. But yeah. You guys like these sounds? I'm gonna add more sounds soon. I got the traditional chill.
Can't quit staring at Connor's dick. I can't stop.
We got the chill. We got the Connor.
How do you think you would beat Tatsuro?
And we got
That was an illegal knee on the head of a grounded opponent.
And then probably my favorite is Connor when he's talking about Bilal. That's what we got so far. We'll add more. You forget, man. See you at the top, Conor McGregor. Chandler's so funny, dude. Him doing a promotion after losing to Charles is ridiculous. Listen, Chandler's a fun fighter. He's an exciting fight. I know a lot of people hate him. I kind of get it, but not 100%. Like, he is an exciting fighter, but I guess it is fun to make fun of him, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, Chandler is fun. We'll see what's for Michael Chandler next. Retirement should be probably. What should it be? Maybe honestly, you know, it'd be really fun. If they did Chandler versus BSD, that'd be really fun. But I don't know. Chandler may just retire. McGregor's new haircut. Yeah, I saw it. I'll pull it on. He's Chuck Liddell now. Conor McGregor. It's an illegal knee to a downed opponent. Shut up, Joe. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Oh shit. How do I mute this fucking thing? There we go. Look at his new haircut, chat. If you haven't seen it, Here's Connor. Oh man. But there he is. But even the fun down, I got PTSD. Oh man. You think he had do you think he has weight strapped on him at all times? That'd be impressive. I guess his shorts were kind of short, but oh man. Freaking Connor. Conor McGregor. Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. Oh man. Connor's tremendous. Tremendous. Let's see. What do we got? We got anything new on Twitter? Any new news or anything like that? Let's see. Let's see. Oh, by the way, what do you guys think of Shara? Do you think Shara's good? He's just a can crusher in my opinion. I don't think he's good at all. But I know, dude, I see it on Twitter a lot, and even on some YouTube videos of some YouTubers. They're talking about, like, I hate to call him out now. Maybe he doesn't have the same opinion now, but I remember the Weasel back in the day was like, dude, Shara's insane. His kickboxing is really good. He's really fast. He's really technical on the feet. He does a lot of good things. And I was thinking, like, bro, what is he talking about? Because yeah, he has good kicks. Obviously, he does have good kicks, but he has literally zero boxing and he has one eye. His boxing defense isn't good. He gets caught a lot. I mean, he's fighting a lot of cans. I know he beat a lot of these guys, but still, he's fighting a lot of cans. And Marc-Andre Barrios, I don't want to say almost found a finish, but he was relatively close. He landed a clean shot directly on the nose, breaking it. And I guess credit to Shara for surviving and getting the victory, but still, I personally don't think Shara's good at all. But I guess we'll see. We'll see what he does. He would get molested by a top 10. I agree. I actually agree, though. He's good against unranked. Yeah. Yeah, he's good against, like, the Bruno Silvas of the world. I think Bruno Silva, by the way, should retire. His last fight was so bad. He looked bad in the fight for one, but for two, he literally cracked his skull. You would think they would force him to retire, but we'll see. If I wouldn't honestly be shocked if we hear Bruno Silva is coming back to fight some young guy. I would be actually kind of annoyed because, dude, the guy is gonna, like, he possibly could have real problems. That was pretty bad. But yeah, those kind of fighters I think are kind of Shara's level. Those kind of guys are guys that I think Shara could beat pretty easily, actually. But guys that are ranked, guys that are good, honestly, for lack of a better word, I think Shara would probably struggle with them. But yeah. Did you see the Shafkat accident? No. Oh, yes, I did actually. Yeah, I did. I did with his son and his wife, I believe, something like that. I believe they were okay, which is good. Oh, thank God. But yeah, I did see that. That was kind of sad. I also saw that Ben Askren, a little bit of an update on him. I heard he went back to the hospital, which is obviously not great to see, but I don't think it's something that bad. I think they were just worried. The doctors were worried about a potential infection, so they gave him antibiotics, and he's back in the hospital. So hopefully he gets all that sorted out, and he can get back out of the hospital again. But yeah, definitely a very inspiring story for Ben. And I hope he gets better. But it is looking like the worst may be behind him. Knock on wood, obviously, but we'll see. We'll see what comes next for our boy Ben Askren. But let's check. Actually, didn't even check. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that I missed. Alex Pereira punches Aiden Ross. I don't really know why it's that. That's news. Whatever. And ATS said that guy's cool, but he keeps wearing my belt to Max Holloway. Whatever. But yeah. Alrighty, fellas. If you guys have any other questions, be sure to let me know in chat. But if not, I think I might wrap the stream up. It's been fun. It's been a little bit over 2 hours. It's been great talking to you boys. Thanks so much for the super chat, by the way. If you're still here, Scorpio. It really does mean a lot. And thanks for everybody else just for being here. And I'll see you boys tomorrow, 8 p.m. tomorrow. Peace out, fellas. See you, MB, by the way.